Hello, everybody. Welcome to our session on cities taking the lead on global extreme heat. My name is Mauricio Rodas. I am the former mayor of Quito, Ecuador. I am a visiting scholar at the University of Pennsylvania's Penn Institute for Urban Research, the Perry World House, and the Climate Center for Energy Policy. And I am also a senior fellow at the Adrian R. Rockefeller Foundation Resilience Center. Today, I have the pleasure and the honor to moderate a fantastic panel with an amazing group of leaders who are making the difference on tackling extreme heat in their cities. This is a very international panel session because we have people from all over the world. I am actually speaking to you from Australia, even though I am from Ecuador, and we have our guest speakers coming from Athens, Greece, from Santiago de Chile, and from Monterrey, Mexico. I would like to introduce you to all of them. First of all, we have with us today Eleni Mirvili. She's the Chief Heat Officer of the city of Athens and recently appointed as well as the first ever global Chief Heat Officer at the UN Habitat UN agency, which is the result of a collaboration between the Adrian R. Rockefeller Foundation Resilience Center and UN Habitat. We also have with us today Laura Ballesteros. She's the Secretary of Sustainable Development for the city of Monterrey in Mexico. And also working for the city of Monterrey in Mexico, we have Sureya Segu, who's the Chief Heat Officer of Monterrey. We also have the pleasure to welcome today Cristina Huidobro, who's the Chief Heat Officer of Santiago de Chile. Thank you so much to all of you for joining us today. We regret the fact that Eugenia Carbo, who's the Chief Heat Officer of the city of Freetown in Sierra Leone, who was supposed to be with us today, cannot make it because she is joining the mayor of that city, Yvonne Aki Sawyer, into a very difficult political persecution situation in her country. And actually, I would like to take this opportunity to express our solidarity to Mayor Aki Sawyer for the very tough political hurdle that she is facing in her country. And we hope that that terrible situation can be resolved very soon. Now, today we're going to be talking about how to address extreme heat in cities and how, by doing so, cities are actually taking the lead in this particular field at the global scale. Extreme heat will affect 3.5 billion people by the year 2070. 1.6 billion of whom will be living in cities. Extreme heat is the climate-driven hazard that kills more people than any other. And actually, in many countries, heat kills more people than all other climate hazards combined. The problem is that extreme heat is named a silent killer. Why? Because it kills people in a silent way. It is not visually shocking as a hurricane, as a flood, as a forest fire. All of these climate hazards make headline news. You watch them on TV. That's not the case with extreme heat. Extreme heat kills silently, and that's why it is called the silent killer. But just to put this in context, in the US in the year 2020, heat killed 20 times more people than hurricanes. And this is particularly severe in cities. Why? Because of the urban heat island effect. Extreme heat is particularly dangerous for the most vulnerable populations in cities. That's why it is so important to address extreme heat in cities. And to do so, we need leadership. And that's what we have today in this session. We have this amazing group of women who are making the difference to save people's lives, to protect the economy, to protect jobs in their cities from the threats of extreme heat. And they are not only doing that locally, but also they are supporting their mayors in upscaling these initiatives at the global level. The mayors that are part of the City Champions for Heat Action initiative, the mayors of Miami-Dade County, Santiago de Chile, Monterrey, Athens, Freetown, and Melbourne, recently launched what's called the Global Heat Advocacy Strategy. The idea is to engage top global leaders and organizations to embrace the urban heat agenda globally and support cities to implement effective actions to address extreme heat-related risks. So cities are taking the lead in this very important field, as you can see. I would like to start the conversation by asking all of our guest speakers about their main actions in their cities. What for you are the key initiatives that are being implemented? Why did you choose those particular actions to become so relevant to save people's lives, to protect human health and your cities from this increasingly severe threat? I would like to start with you, Lenio. Please tell us about your work program in Athens. What are your priorities? And once again, thank you so much and welcome.
Thank you, Mauricio. It's great to be here. Thanks for the invitation. The city of Athens has been focusing on heat as the major crisis that it's going to be facing because of climate change for a few years now. But particularly this last year, because of our collaboration and the collaboration with the RSROC Resilience Center and the appointment of me as the Chief Heat Officer, it has been focusing on scaling up and starting also a couple of new things as well. I just want to remind everyone, I mean, if you, I don't know if you remember, but last year it was a really, Athens was hit last summer, not the summer that passed, the summer before, was hit by a terrible heat wave that reached really high temperatures, historically never reached before in the city of Athens, which is 45 degrees, but I don't know what this is Fahrenheit. And it also created, the heat wave was really long. It was almost 3 weeks or a little bit more than 3 weeks. And it also created conditions of extreme drought. And so we had peri-urban fires. So we had fires and heat, and it was actually like, it was kind of post-apocalyptic those days in Athens. And kind of by chance, a few days before all this happened, the appointment happened of the Chief Heat Officer in Athens. So we kind of hit the ground running. And the things that we decided to focus on for this particular year are mostly a new system of categorizing heat waves, because as Mauricio said, because exactly it's a silent killer and there's little awareness around how deadly these things are, we have to raise awareness. So with this particular methodology of categorizing heat waves, which we're trying in Athens, we tried it for the first time this summer in Athens, brings together meteorological data with health data and creates these 3 categories. And each category actually talks not only about how hot it's going to be, but also what percentage of the risk for the people that live in Athens is getting higher and higher with each category. So it kind of, the categorization of heat waves actually shows within the categorization the impact that it will have on the people. Then we linked all this with a series of early warning systems and different kind of suggestions and different measures that we put on the ground. And basically measures that deal with how to protect people while the heat waves are happening. And then we created, so this was one kind of big chunk of measures. And the other thing, Mauricio, that we did was actually to try to make very, very concrete ways of supporting the green spaces that we have in Athens and planning for more nature in the city. So I can talk this later if you want. I don't want to monopolize any more of the time for the time being.
Thank you so much. Lenio, we'll come back to you so you can give us some details about very interesting initiatives that you are promoting in Athens, including the Attica project.
Yes.
Let me now give the floor to Laura. Laura Ballesteros, as I mentioned before, is the Secretary of Sustainable Development for the city of Monterrey, and she's in charge of many very, very innovative initiatives to foster the implementation of nature-based solutions in Monterrey, as a way not only to foster sustainable development, but also to reduce temperatures and to cool down the city. So Laura, could you please tell us about the new policy framework that you are implementing in Monterrey? And I would be particularly curious to hear from you about the Green Corridor initiative that Mayor Luis Donaldo Colosio is promoting in Monterrey.
Yes, of course, Mauricio. Thank you very much for the invitation, and hello to everybody. Well, as you may know, here in Monterrey, we are facing one of the most challenging times because of the climate crisis. The water crisis that we have been facing since the last year speaks for itself. It is not a secret when I am saying that people right now are suffering because we didn't take action in the last years and administrations, in the past ones. So what we are trying to do right now, and Eleni, you are right, we have to raise our word and to create awareness. So our first step here was to declare our climate emergency. For us, this is important because when you are taking this political lead, it is important to understand that people have to know this, and governors, in this case mayors, has to take the commitment in public. So we did this in the COP26 in Stockholm, in order to create this big awareness, an international, national, and local one, but also to create a big a framework of alliances with the international community. And this is how we met the Rockefeller Center and the Extreme Heat Initiative. So I may say that our main objectives there started to create their own results in the very first moment when we arrived in the COP26. So then we create the Green Deal for Monterrey as our personal, but also institutional and governmental response to the climate emergency declaration. And inside this Green New Deal, that it is like an umbrella, a framework of all the work that Monterrey has to do in order to create future, we create also a new ministry, and it is called the Sustainable Urban Development Ministry. And in this ministry, what we are trying to do is through 3 different divisions, because in the past it was just only one division, and it was urban development, and it was only like an office to urban permits, and that's it. No vision, no public policy, no green infrastructure, mobility, or sustainable actions at all. So we create 3 different divisions. One, it is called the sustainable, the urban mobility, the urban development division. The other one, it is the mobility and public space division, and the other one is the climate action and green development division. And through the work with the development sector, the people, the business people that are inside the development sector, we have been developing a big conversation inside the Green New Deal on how they can create with us green infrastructure. So what we are trying to do here is, yes, we are going to have maybe as a government 2 or 3 main strategic projects when it comes about extreme heat and climate action public policy. But if we have the private sector with us building this green infrastructure, it will be better, it will be faster, it will be easier. So through the urban permits, we are developing these conversations in order to have them on board and adopting this green infrastructure. For example, parks or green corridors or safe intersections or the reforestation of our city. And or the adoption of these systems that we have to capture the rainwater for the people in the Monterrey. So right now this is happening, this is working. We are in the very beginning of this work. And our main public policy here in order to have these people on board is the public park system and the green corridors agenda. So we are building a very aggressive agenda with this. We have 19 parks in our scope in the next 3 years to build a lot of public and green space. Build, of course, all the conditions to capture water in our green and public spaces. Plant a lot of trees to cool the sun with all these actions, also to give climate services to the population through this. And of course, with the green corridors, what we are trying to apply here is the sustainable mobility agenda with the complete street with an extreme reforestation. So this is part of what we are working right now. Parque Lago is one of our biggest challenges in the agenda. We are going to, with this green infrastructure, to give climate services and a very good public space, green public space for the people, around 150,000 people that lives in the surroundings with only 15 minutes by walk in order to get there. So for us, this is a very huge step. And this area, the area that we are working on with the green corridors and park systems, specifically the Parque Lago and Luis Donaldo Colosio, are in the north zone of the city. And this zone is the most populated one, but also the one that has a very important lack of green space and climate services for the people. Of course, is the hottest one too, with a very, very extreme heat temperatures, because they don't have enough trees and enough public green space. So I will stop here, but this is, I mean, like the whole idea that we are trying to build here. And of course, this is just the beginning, but we are trying to have the green infrastructure results at the end of the next year, at least the first 19 ones.
Thank you so much, Laura, for that very comprehensive perspective of what Monterrey is doing in these very important topics. Now, I would like to ask Sureya, as the Chief Heat Officer of Monterrey, how do you see, well, Monterrey is facing a lot of challenges, like Laura mentioned, one of them being the potential scarcity of water as a result of heat. So what do you think should be like the main specific actions that should be taken in the city to address extreme heat, the threat of extreme heat for the people, but also for the provision of basic services, like, for example, water?
Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me, for the invitation. And thank you, Laura, for that great presentation about the city and what the city is doing. I just want to continue on what Laura was talking about. I mean, being a city of 1,150,000, almost 50,000 people, and understanding that 7% of their surface, or less than 7% of its surface, has green surfaces. We have a great challenge, because also, as Laura was mentioning, the north part of the city, but also downtown of the city, are suffering from the heat island effect. 70% of the population are suffering for the heat island effect. So it's really, really hard to, and heartbreaking. I mean, just to see how the city has been developing in the last decades in a way that it's more car-oriented. So this idea of the integral system of parks and green corridors is the one that we are looking at in a city scale level, because we think that is going to be the umbrella project for all the other projects that Laura mentioned, like including the sustainable mobility, but also the rehabilitation of parks and reforestation of parks, but also corridors. And we are thinking that the park is also the way to treat infrastructure in the city. I mean, the system of parks and green corridors. So it's going to be an integral system where water is going to be managing too. So we are going to integrate. I mean, the problem of the heat is not the heat alone. It's the heat, the quality of the air, the humidity, and of course, water. So we need to face heat thinking in an integral way to the city. And under that system, we are planning to create an infrastructural park. So these parks that Laura was talking about is in looking at the park as an infrastructural system. And then this is going to be in a local or neighborhood level. So we have different levels of actions, the system as a city level, and then each park and corridors and the connections with different kind of mobility is very important too. So the green corridors are going to be green, natural, and urban, and we can connect people from one place to another one in a better way. So if you can imagine a city where temperatures get up to 113 degrees Fahrenheit, and you have to walk from home to take the subway station, and you are just looking at some shades, and if you don't have trees, you need to have some ways where you can connect from your home, walk. Even walking in those conditions 2 blocks is really hard. So we are thinking about, I mean, the idea of the green corridors is to bring that kind of shade and also caption of water and integrate all the efforts within the city in a neighborhood scale too. So the rainwater harvesting that Laura was mentioning is happening in a different scale too, at an institutional level, but also in a housing level. And the idea is that by tackling the public space, we are going to be connecting with housing too, which is a very big and important issue there, because housing is where the majority of the houses in Monterey are not prepared for this heat. So we need to also start thinking about cooling solutions like cooling roofs and working with the community very close. So as Lenio was saying, including awareness is the first step, but these actions in a different scales are very important.
Thank you so much, Sureya. And I think that, you have complemented the approach that Laura outlined in terms of, undertaking several sustainable development challenges with the specificity of extreme heat related actions that need to be implemented. So thank you so much for that. Now let me go to Cristina. Cristina is the Chief Heat Officer of the city of Santiago de Chile, actually the metropolitan region of Santiago de Chile, which has the challenge to deal with several municipalities to implement action on the ground on extreme heat. But before speaking about that, which is something that I will ask you in my follow-up question, Cristina, the challenges that you are facing, I would like you to share with all of us the main priorities you are focusing on right now, and in particular, the Cool Roofs initiative that Santiago de Chile is promoting currently.
Thank you, Mauricio. I'm going to share really quick. I promise 5 slides. It's not that much. Oops. Do you see it?
Yes.
It's okay?
Yes, we can see it. Thank
you. Okay. I'll answer your question, but before I want to make a really brief context for whom might not know Santiago or even Chile. The metropolitan region of Santiago it's where the 40% of Chile's population live. It's a city with about 8 million people, and as Mauricio told before, we have 52 municipalities within the region. So it's a challenge in governance. We'll talk about that later. But what is really in our main preoccupation is more than the third of the population of the metropolitan region live on a heat island. The heat waves also have increased during the past decades. So it's a lot of people that live in a really dense city with many complicated problems, like not only extreme heat, but also this phenomena called urban heat island, where the temperatures can go up even about 5-10 degrees Celsius, more than the rest of the city, because of the type of construction, because of their environment, the lack of nature, and things like that. So as the other cities, we are approaching our work in three main scopes. First is preparedness, as Lenio told. We also are working in our categorization of heat waves. We are right now, after this meeting, I have my task force meeting. The summer here is around the corner. We are in spring, so we are hurrying our work, trying to have something for this summer. So we are working on that, and also working in awareness, how to educate or aware people about the extreme heat menace and problems. Also, what we are doing is we are monitoring the heat waves and the heat in general in Santiago. So we have this website that anyone can see and review the historical temperatures and see if the current temperature is above that red line, which is the average of the historical temperatures. And if we have 3 days with temperatures above that red line, you can see that red thick line that shows that in September we have our first heat wave here in Santiago. But the good news was it was a low temperature season, so wasn't dangerous for the people's health. So what else we're doing? Adaptation, how we adapt our cities to this new reality. It seems like the scenario of climate change and heat is something we need to start thinking that is something that we need to live with and adapt to. So we have 2 main projects right now. We're of course working on others, but the first one is we just found a $2 million urban tree reforestation. Sorry for the typo there. And also a green roof pilot project on a children's hospital. The idea here is not only do this project that everyone might agree that are good ideas or might work, but the idea is also try to do them thinking in the long term. How these projects are not a one-time solution, but maybe they become like a public policy in the long run. So we are measuring, we have indicators, we are trying to see this project as how do you say it? Sorry, in a comprehensive way, in order to have a lot of learnings and then try to provide a lot of data in order to become them public policy if we agree with the results, of course. Especially with the urban tree, because we know the main challenge in cities, because this is not putting trees in parks, it's putting trees in highly consolidated main streets, in commercial areas, in downtown. So we know many of them are going to die. It's not easy to put a new tree in an environment which is polluted, which is full of cement. So the idea is to test the best way to plant them and follow up in order to do what's the best type of plantation. And same thing with the greenwood, with sensor and all those things. But I wanted to put, and this is the last one, I think this one, another one. I want to put here in the discussion, Mauricio, sorry, I didn't give you the heads up about this, but it's how we think about local solutions. This is something that I've been thinking a lot the last couple of weeks, because of course, as a network of CHOs, we are learning from each other, we learn from other projects and what are other cities doing. But I think the challenge, at least for Latin America, it's how we can do things that are according to our own reality. We don't have big budgets. We have a lot of restriction in governance, in funding, etc. So maybe we cannot make a network of cooling centers. But this is an Azureya idea. But what if our cooling centers are churches? We have a lot of them. They are old ones and they are really cool inside. So why don't we think a little bit out of the box and try to make a local way of do things regarding the implementation of the program? Small things like trying, all of this is trying to avoid AC. Of course, the obvious solution to try to keep people safe and cool is to put them near an AC unit. But of course, for us, it's not something, first, it's bad for the environment. And second, also it's expensive. We have a lot of energy poverty here. So it's not something you can do in a massive way. So how we educate people about cross ventilation, why we don't see this all and saying all a way to deal with climate with window shutters that are so common in our colonial cities. And especially because we have, this is an informal settlement here in Santiago. It's a 2 years old informal settlement. Most people here are migrants. Most of them came during the pandemic. We all know, you can see, it's not that we are going to put green roof in those houses. So what are the solutions for them? Maybe it's not the ideal, but we are looking into white roof, trying to think in cheaper, faster, and more pertinent solution for this type of settlements. And those are only a couple of ideas. I don't want to go too long. And the last thing that I want to say is like try to think solutions. I always say this: the cities are part of the problem of climate change and emissions, and how we can make the cities part of the solution. So that's our main goal here. Then let me, that's it. So hopefully you got a sense of what we're doing, our main questions, preoccupations, and challenges. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Cristina. I encourage all participants in this session to send your questions through the chat, section of this this webinar. We'll love to hear your questions and answer them. Actually, we have one from Polly regarding cool pavements. She's asking whether this helps solve the heat island or create new issues. I will try to answer that question very quickly. Yes, cool pavements is a very effective way to address extreme heat in cities, because as opposed to regular pavements that absorb heat, cool pavements reflect heat, and that helps to cool down the cities. And there are actually many cities in the world implementing this kind of technology. Phoenix in Arizona is one of them. So yes, this is the kind of very cost-effective solutions that can be implemented at the urban level to address extreme heat. While we keep receiving questions from the audience, I would like to ask Lenio to very briefly answer two questions. The first one is regarding the Attica project, because I think innovation and creativity is very important to tackle extreme heat in cities, and certainly the Attica project is a good example of that. And the second one, given the fact that you are the new Global Chief Heat Officer, how do you see upscaling the work all of you are doing at the local level to the global level? How do you see working through international organizations to foster the implementation of effective action to tackle extreme heat in cities around the world?
Okay, so I'm going to share, since Christina shared the PowerPoint, I'm going to share a PowerPoint too, very quickly. I also have 5 slides. So give me a second. Okay. Can you guys see it? Wait, let me see.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Oh, is this okay?
Yeah.
Great. You can see it correctly?
No, you
Yes.
need to put in, no, it's not in
No.
presentation
Okay.
mode.
Wait. How's this?
Yeah.
There we
you
go.
go. Yeah.
Okay. So this is just a view of Athens for people that haven't been in Athens. Like there's like a lot of houses and some kind of green areas. It's as Christina said, it's in Athens also we have a lot of municipalities around. Athens is the biggest municipality in the center, but as the little red kind of municipality, but all around it, there's 38 other municipalities that make the metropolitan Athens area. I will go quickly to this other slide, which basically gives you a little bit of information up on top with some data. The city of Athens has about 660,000 residents, but because it's the center of the Athens metropolitan area, it's used by over 1 million people daily, like 1.5 million to 2 million people daily. We also have extraordinary density. We are the densest city in Europe after Paris. Parts of us are as dense as some of the neighborhoods of Paris. So these two cities are the highest density in Europe. And I will quickly go to the lower part of the slide now to kind of talk about the fact that it's not only densely populated, but it's also extremely densely built. And there is uncontrollable cementification. We've managed to totally cover all of our rivers and our water kind of sources in the city during the last decades. And out of the whole city, which you can see here, is kind of in the center, and there are mountains around it. The city of Athens has 38 square kilometers, which is the whole city. Less than 5 kilometers are green spaces. So we have, this is really bad for heat. So we have actually I've moved in 3 general pillars of building heat resilience in Athens. The first has to do with awareness, as we talked about. The second one has to do with preparedness. And the third has to do with redesign. In awareness, we are doing a lot of things, but possibly the most important is, as I mentioned, the categorization of heat waves. In preparedness, we have created a whole series of helping people take measures either in their homes or with their families or in the neighborhood to kind of help each other during heat waves, to know what to do and how to support each other. We have created an app which tells you how much, a phone app, a smartphone app that tells you how much at risk. It's called Extrema Global, and actually it's all around the world. It tells you how much risk you have at the place where you are in the city, and then as Christina was saying, and as Surya was saying before, and Laura, like how to kind of organize the cool spaces. So this particular smartphone app tells you how, if you are at risk based on how old you are, etc., some specific things that you have to put in, and tells you where are the closest cool areas you can go to take cover. So these are cool stations that the municipality has opened, but also, as you said, churches, entrances to subway stations, green areas that are particularly cool and beloved by the locals, etc. We've created a fan that has like quick guidelines of what to do and what not to do in heat waves. So these are some things, and websites and all that. And finally, in the redesign, I'll go to what Mauricio asked for. We're doing a lot of greening and trying to do pocket parks and cool corridors, etc. But the most important kind of thing that we're doing is that there is this aqueduct which was built in 150 after Christ during the Roman Empire by Hadrian. And Hadrian kind of did this extraordinary engineering feat of running an underground aqueduct for 23 kilometers, just, you know, slightly inclining, so the water doesn't go too fast or too slow, for 23 kilometers from the outskirts of Athens to the very center of Athens. And here on the right, you see a picture of where the aqueduct ends, which is a cistern that they had, that was built in the center of Athens. And so what we are participating in this effort for the 8 municipalities that the Hadrian Aqueduct runs underneath, to in these 8 municipalities, we actually mapped out together with the water and sewage company where are 20 areas that we're going to tap in and take water to support green areas all around the aqueduct. So it becomes a large green corridor for the Attica region, for the whole metropolitan Athens region. And this water right now is thrown away. So it's really important to tap into it. And rather than actually replenish the aquifer, et cetera, but also we are creating with the Arch Rock Resilience Center, we're creating a series of guidelines for how to use green, how to use plants, how to use water in the surface of the city, and how to use permeable surfaces and different types of materials. So that in different typologies of the urban space, so pavements, squares, parks, spaces between buildings, et cetera, in different typologies, what kind of things one should use to lower temperatures, the best possible way to use these green and water and materials to lower temperatures. So this is the Hadrian Aqueduct project, which is a big project and is at the moment in the design phase and the funding phase, which is going to be to a large extent by EU structural funds. So this is what I had to say about the first question, which I hope it wasn't too long, and I'll stop sharing now. And the second question is how can we how can we move all these things that we're doing in our specific cities and our specific contexts to a larger, more global context? I think what is important is that we actually, through, to a large extent, Mauricio and his kind of a relationship and kind of already established connections with the UN system and specifically with the UN Habitat, we actually contacted the UN Habitat to try to see, because the UN Habitat is about human settlements, to see again, when we're talking about heat, that the most vulnerable areas on the planet are cities. So to see about the populations of cities and how we can support them and how we can actually help reduce mortality and morbidity. There are a lot of challenges in taking things like that are specific to cities and in a larger scale, but there are ways, there are things that we can quickly generalize. that we can quickly, I think, see as low-hanging fruit in different tools that we can quickly see implemented in cities around the world without necessarily meaning that you need to bring large funding or large access to big types of funds. So one of the low-hanging fruits that we always kind of say is there for cities is to do some really good strategic planning. So part of what we can quickly bring to UN Habitat is we have created this heat action platform. Actually supporting different cities all around the world to use this platform and to build a really good, comprehensive and integrated plan on how to lower temperatures, particularly in their cities with their conditions, is something I think that needs to be done globally with cities. Like the first thing to do is really good planning and a really good strategy, because often this planning and this strategy can, if it's really good and comprehensive, can attract funding. So we've seen this again and again in different cities, that when you have really good plans and good strategies, then you can apply for funding, and then you can attract funding both from large organizations and from different private initiatives as well. Another issue is how can we bring a more change, make a shift so that the type of projects that are happening in cities are actually the type of big projects that have to do with with infrastructure, is actually resilient infrastructure, so that we actually may stop making the same mistakes that we've been making in the past when we developed modernity in our cities, and start shifting to the type of what we call green and blue infrastructure, which is what we've been talking about now and what Laura has been also describing. Basically, considering that we are in a different climate era, and that the infrastructures that we've been building up to now have been taking the aspects and the needs of a different type of climate. So we kind of have to really think of how we can shift the way that things are done in cities around the world. And this is a much, much larger challenge, and it will be much more difficult to do, but it's really, really needed. Finally, the third thing that I would say is that in general, we have to make really good connections with ways that we can make sure that the populations in different cities around the world are better educated and have a better understanding of the dangers and of the risks of the weather phenomena. And this is part of this whole effort that the General Secretary of the UN has put a lot of attention to, which has to do with early warning systems. We know that few people really know and are in time warned for impending extreme weather phenomena. And this will be something that will really save lives all around the world. So this is another aspect that can be it's not so difficult to do, to put into place early warning systems all around the cities in the world, to make sure that people know that next week or in a few days or tomorrow, there's going to be a heat wave that might be extremely dangerous, that could take lives.
Thank you so much, Lenio, for that very comprehensive overview about the importance.
When you say comprehensive, we understand that we've been talking too much.
No, not at all. Not at all. You've been comprehensive.
Thank you.
And you know, now that you're talking about the early warning system, I think it is worth mentioning the relevance of the Ars Rocks initiative on categorization and naming of heat waves. Athens actually just implemented a categorization system for heat waves, just like the city of Seville in Spain implemented a system to name and categorize heat waves. Actually, the first named heat wave in the world was Zoe in July in Seville. as an effective mechanism to raise awareness and to provide the population with different tools to protect themselves from the threats associated with extreme heat. We have only 5 minutes and we have several questions, so I will ask you to be very brief in your answers. Alex Putzer is asking, are there any policies that also address the negative effects heat has on animals and plants themselves? Christina said that a lot of trees are going to die, and it does seem like an unnecessary sacrifice. Who would like to take this very quickly?
Of course, I don't want the trees to die. Of course not, but that's what climate change is doing. The trees that we were used to have in our cities are dying. It's hard to keep them healthy and alive. So I think it's time for innovation. We don't have a policy, but at least we are really aware that we need to innovate, and that's why I was trying to explain with our program. We are not planting all trees the same way. We're going to try different ways, measure that in order to try to do our best in the next phase, right? So I think that's a way to do that. Probably, and of course, we are trying to see this problem in a holistic way. So probably we haven't been thinking about animals yet, but that's a good question. I'd make a note trying to think about how we can address that issue as well.
Thank you so much,
Can I jump in?
Very quickly.
Very quickly.
Not so comprehensive this time.
No comprehensive, very short and not comprehensive. This comes back to the question that you asked before, Mauricio, about water. Water, we are realizing more and more that for both our trees and our animals, our cities will need to make sure that we have access to water resources, and we have to be very careful about how we use them.
Great, thank you so much, Lenio. Anjali,
Mauricio, sorry.
Anjali,
I don't know if I can answer one of the questions.
Let me go to the next one. Let me go to the next one. You can combine them both if you want. Anjali Mahindra from WRI. Hi, Anjali. Great to have you here. Thanks for joining. Is asking, how are you chief heat officers breaking across silos of different city level sectoral agencies, water, land use, transport, housing, to implement these actions? How have you been empowered? Were there any enabling policy changes, for example, or do you have specific budget allocations to deal with heat risks? I think this is a great question. Who wants to take it? Sureya?
I can do that, yes. Yeah, and I can answer another question that is in there that about strategies that integrate solutions for other, not just for heat. But I think that one of the major roles of a chief heat officer is to try to focus all the efforts in terms of heat and try to make a more integral approaches. So that's one thing that we are doing, working into breaking these silos. I mean, how we can bring different agencies, and not just within the government, but also within the civil society, NGOs, and how everybody can work together facing these issues. And I mean, understanding that we need to create an integrative plan and work in that way. So also the strategies that we are implementing as a system of parks and green corridors is an integral strategy that is looking into managing water in different ways, including flooding, that the city of Monterrey also happen to have. We have droughts, but we also have floodings. And so I mean, we are in charge of bringing together the different sectors, and also in being sure that every effort that is being done in the city has this integrality in terms of not just policy, but also actions.
Thank you, Sureya.
Can I say something?
Let me just go to this last question, Christina, sorry. This question goes to Laura from Amanda Lloyd. So how can heat strategies integrate with solutions for other issues, for example, flooding?
Mauricio, I have a little problem with my audio. Could you just repeat the question, please?
How can heat strategies integrate with solutions for other issues, for example, flooding?
Thank you. Well, that's a very good question, especially for Monterrey, because this is a very extreme city when it comes about everything. When we have heat, we have a lot of heat. When we have cold, we have a lot of cold. When we have rain, we have a lot of rain, and we don't have it, we are dry. So right now, one of the biggest problems with this planchas de calor, how do you say it in English? I'm sorry. One of the biggest problems that we have right now is that we need to build green infrastructure in order to capture the rainwater and to feed the floor with that. And Monterrey doesn't have this in most of the spaces in the city on the surface. So the green corridors and the parks are part of that solution. The green corridors are trying to work on the street to create that green infrastructure in order to capture water and to, of course, manage the flood. But also the parks, because we are trying to create like a lot of surface over there to open the strategy on the flooding situation too. The big infrastructure, when it comes about flooding, it is not just about the green infrastructure, but in a city like this one, it is a very important.
Thank you so much, Laura. Actually, we just passed our allocated time, so I will wrap it up. First of all, by thanking to all of you for your great interventions. It is really inspiring to hear the great work you are doing. And also, I would like to highlight the importance of multi-stakeholder collaboration to address extreme heat in cities. And I think that what we are doing today by bringing together city officials, civil society, and the academia to discuss this very relevant topic is a great example of that. We need to keep the conversation going. There's a lot to discuss about how to effectively address extreme heat in cities, but certainly it is very encouraging to see the great leadership that we have in some cities around the world undertaking this very important challenge. So thank you so much to all the panelists. Thank you so much for everybody who has joined this very interesting discussion. It has been a pleasure for me to moderate it, and I hope you all keep enjoying the different events organized under the umbrella of the Penn Climate Week. Thank you so much. Goodbye.
Thank you for having us.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.